This is the Try Swim Coach podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TrySwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
Welcome to Try Swim Coach. This is Kevin, and this is episode 111. And thanks for listening. Just a minute, I have an interview with Dominic Latella of SwimBox.com. And this is a really great interview. He's got so much knowledge and passion for swimming that I think you'll find this really helpful. So stay tuned for that. Just one thing I wanted to mention before we get to that interview. So we have a program at Try Swim Coach called Try Swim Success. And I just added a new module, and we actually talk about it a little bit in this interview, which the new module is about breathing. And this is not the kind of breathing that we usually talk about, which is breathing in freestyle, which is an issue for a lot of people. But this is actually breathing on land and how to get better at that, and how to get the oxygen flowing throughout your body and be able to have the confidence when you're swimming to be in the water and know that you can do without oxygen while you're swimming. So you can check out the course. Just go to tryswimcoach.com. We just added that breathing module. If you are a member already, I highly recommend you go through that, because it's something that's going to be really key to your success. And I think this is our new thing for 2017. And I think this is going to make just a big difference in everyone's swim this year. So that's about all I had. So thanks again for listening. Have a great week of training. Enjoy the interview, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, I'm excited to have Coach Dominic Latella of SwimBox.com today on the podcast. And in addition to his love for the sport, Dominic has been in the swimming world for over 14 years, and not just as a coach. He's also the only level 4 U.S. Masters swim coach in Virginia and DC, which is the highest level of certification available. Head coach for adaptive swimming at Walter Reed, 2-time coach at USMS High Performance Camp, 10 years coaching experience working with swimmers of all ages and abilities, and U.S. Masters Swimming Level 1 to 3 certification instructor, and also Learn to Swim certification instructor. And Dominic's straight to the point scientific approach helps people learn safe and efficient swimming technique. SwimBox's endless pool technology allows him to be able to stop swimmers mid-stroke and make any needed corrections and adjustments. He guides triathletes and others to exactly what needs to be done with their swimming to become more efficient, get faster, and swim injury-free. And his site again is theswimbox.com. Hey, Dominic. Yeah, welcome to Try Swim Coach.
Thanks. It's great to have a conversation with you. I'm really excited, actually. So with all that introduction, I feel like I do too much. I probably should know what I do. But I really love swimming, and it's, I hope, obvious by all the things I try to put myself into with swimming.
Yeah, you've done so much. How did you develop this passion for swimming?
When I was in high school, I started to really ramp up swimming, and I developed some shoulder injuries that I was in PT, I think from my sophomore year of high school through my senior year of high school, and actually was going to give up on swimming in college because of the injuries. Went to college, helped start to form my swim team there at college at Savannah College of Art and Design. Got really fortunate having a great coach there, but by my senior year of college in swimming, I had to have surgery on my shoulders. And as I learned more and more about swimming, I realized that surgery could have been prevented through better technique. So I made it sort of my mission to dedicate my time to making sure if people want to be swimming for the rest of their lives, and it's one of the few sports that you can do indefinitely, I want to make sure they can do it safely and without injury at the best of their ability, no matter what their limitations might already be. And swimming, it gave me everything. I went to school and was getting scholarships because of swimming. I got to after school moved to the Bahamas for 2 years, which was fantastic. And that was all because of swimming. And now I make my complete living off of just swimming.
Yeah.
So if I can give anything back to swimming, I want to give something back to swimming. So it makes me really happy to do that all day long.
I'm curious about this injuries. I actually dealt with a lot of shoulder issues when I was in college as well. And I never had surgery, but later on, it kind of affected me after the fact. It was like fine. Like during college, I had the tendonitis and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. It was only on one side. And for me, it was partly because of my technique. And it was kind of had that reach over going on and some other things that, so I'm curious, what was the issue with your stroke technique there?
So just like most swimmers, especially kids, age group swimmers, they're hyper mobile, hyper flexible people. My shoulders, the ligament that runs across the bicep tendon in your shoulder, was very flexible. And instead of learning how to control that, I forced a lot of downward pressure onto that ligament, usually during the recovery or the power phase of the pull. And it eventually just kept stretching that ligament out to the point where it didn't snap back. And so my shoulder would partially dislocate with about 15 pounds of pressure. So if I had a 15-pound weight in my hand and I let my shoulder relax, my shoulder would actually partially dislocate.
Wow.
So it got very painful if I had a really good dive and there was like some suction to that dive, like a nice little vacuum pull through that dive, my shoulder would dislocate. And I would take a stroke and it would just destroy everything, all the parts of my shoulder that were rubbed by the actual top of the humerus in the joint. So it was a very painful injury, but could have been prevented if I just learned how to keep my shoulder in place while I swam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did the surgery actually fix the problem?
Technically, yes. In that they took the ligament and folded it on top of itself and shortened it again, but it's still the same ligament with the same ability to be stretched out.
Mm-hmm.
So if I didn't correct my technique, which took me a long time after that surgery to get back into swimming, probably about 2 years of really intense work to try to get mobility back in my shoulder. So it could, if I didn't swim properly, it would stretch back out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what kinds of things did you do rehab wise? And are you pretty much healthy now?
I am. So a lot of it at that point, I was just out of college and coaching, had a couple of good mentor coaches that I was working with and figuring out how to use my back more than the actual shoulder joint itself. So a lot of it was sort of self-taught and figuring out, strengthening my back muscles, not depending on my deltoids and my shoulder joint to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but letting my back do a majority of the work. And I think that's where most people sort of don't understand swimming. They think a lot of their swimming should come from their shoulders, but a majority is mostly back muscles, shoulder blade, mid-trap, rhomboids, that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's very true that people are using their shoulders too much. In fact, a lot of times I see swimmers that instead of rotating from their hips, they're kind of rotating from their shoulders. And
yes.
Yeah, you've seen that too?
3 times a day, probably, if not more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big issue. So now can you talk about some of the different types of swimming clients you have and just any stories you have about people that have gone from some pretty good improvements to, some like kind of just starting out to then being able to do like open water swimming or getting faster?
Yeah, I would say a majority of my client base are coming to the sport of swimming for triathlon, but coming to the swimming very late in their lives. If you consider what, swimmers consider an appropriate time to start swimming, is probably when you're like 8 or under. Mm-hmm. We have adults coming into it at 30 and 40 and 45 and sometimes even 50 years old. And that's just impressive to me, because if I think about the last time I decided to learn a new skill, I haven't really put myself out on a limb to learn these new skills. And something as technical as swimming and something as I would call swimming pretty scary. I mean, everyone has some sort of respect or fear for the water, and you're going to have to overcome that fear and respect for the water in order to actually compete in the sport that you want to compete in. So that's noble and admirable in itself, the fact that people are willing to put themselves in these uncomfortable roles. But we work with every type of athlete, from people that are extremely afraid of the water and never swam before in their lives, but have committed to learning a new skill or committed to being safe around water, whether it's just for vacations or competing in a tri, or they were just runners and just never wanted to swim, but now they're realizing that maybe they need to vary their workouts, and swimming might be a good opportunity for them to offload their joints a little bit. So with those types of swimmers, it's a really fun and rewarding experience to see someone go from nothing to learning, 3 of the 4 strokes, or sometimes all 4 strokes, or watching someone like you talk to Andy in a previous podcast, watching Andy go from able to swim but very, very fearful of water to being at his Ironman and watching him get out of the water, was probably one of the most rewarding moments as a swim coach that I've had. But
yeah, that's awesome.
I get to work with so many varied clients. It feels almost hard to even pick one that stands out. But working at Walter Reed also, you get moments at Walter Reed where it's like people confide in you that they used to be great runners and now they can't run. And so they're learning swimming, but swimming for them is an opportunity to escape the fear of falling on their new legs, or the escape fear of not knowing what to do. They're in water and they float and they feel completely comfortable. So that also can be in the back of my mind is an opportunity that I feel like, wow, I feel so lucky to do what I get to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, can you take us through how would you, somebody that comes to you that has no swimming experience, and let's say they're 45, 50 years old adult that has never really done any swimming and has a fear of the water, what would you do with that person? What are the first few steps?
The very first thing, just back to basics, and actually this goes back to when I first started coaching, being able to inhale through your mouth, exhale through your nose is a huge, huge issue for people. I used to teach at American University as an adjunct professor for swimming, and I'd always mention on land first that we're going to inhale through our mouth, exhale through our nose. I'd make everyone do it on land first, and the kids would always giggle like, oh, this is so silly and stupid, but there would be always that 1 or 2 kids that once they got in the water and put their face underwater, couldn't blow out of their nose.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to exhale out of your nose obviously prevents water from going up your nose. It also helps start to learn the exchange of air that you're going to need while you swim. Being able to do that is where we always start. And being able to put goggles on and open people's eyes up underwater takes away a lot of the fear for people.
Yeah.
After that, then, once they kind of demonstrate these types of skills, then you just kind of build off of that. And as they gain confidence in the water, it becomes floating, then it becomes kicking, then it becomes, kicking with arms. So, we slowly build off of everything you learn.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have the one thing that I've run into is this fear of deep water? So people are okay in the shallow end, and then they get to a deep end of a pool, and it's like their body almost just freaks out in an instant.
Right. So here at SwimBox with the endless pool, it's only 4.3 feet deep. So we get people swimming comfortably and controlled, and then we take them to one of the local pools and get them in the deep end.
Oh.
And what's always really funny, I've got a handful of clients that were terrified of drowning, learned how to swim first before we went to the deep end. And before we went to the deep end, I tried to teach them how to actually dive to the bottom of just a 4 feet deep pool.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't dive because they're so buoyant. They don't even understand how to make themselves sink.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of times that helps them understand that if they go into the deep end and they stay just relaxed, they're going to float. So some other things that we like to do is whatever basic skills we started with, like floating, right? Really basic skill, floating on your stomach in a streamlined position, showing them that they can do that in the deep end from maybe a in a corner of the deep end, so wall to wall. So it's a very short distance, maybe just a couple of yards. And they just push off, float to the opposite side of the corner, and then they get to see, oh, this water is the same water as it is over there in the shallow end. Things like that, things that they're very comfortable with already, that they can apply in the deep end. Some other things is actually breath control. So people don't understand that their lungs work like buoys. So if they blow all the air out of their buoys, they start to sink. But if they can slowly exhale or even hold their breath, sometimes I'll have people just hold their breath in a vertical position, and they'll kind of like bob up and down a little bit, and they start to recognize, oh, if I can control my air, then I don't even have to really tread water. I'm buoyant. I float. So it's a tenuous sometimes situation for people when they're in that deep end. But as long as they know that you're nearby and they've done these skills in the shallow end, they seem to get it. They seem to start to trust you. So it's always fun to see that person's face when they go, oh my God, I just treaded water. That's always a great moment.
Yeah, that's really awesome stuff. Now, what about somebody, let's just take it to the next level. So someone that comes to you that, like you said, like maybe they're a runner and they have a little bit of swimming in their background, but it's like they probably learned when they were kids and they're kind of doing the arms and legs and they don't really have much of a hip rotation, and they probably have the runner's kick where the ankles are inflexible and they're sinking a little bit. What would you do with that type of person that's just starting with you?
So if they have some swimming background, we start with the legs, actually, so that we try to isolate leg movement to make sure that their legs aren't doing harm to their swim, meaning causing a lot of drag or kicking really far down in their down kick. That's actually going to make them sink a little bit, making sure they're not using their legs to compensate for a lack of balance in the water. So we started with the legs, and then we try to show them or demonstrate to them how their core is really the center piece to swimming, and how their legs and their core are going to interact together. And once we kind of get through that, we figure out how their arms and their core work together. And then we try to get their core sort of coordinating all the movements. So it's very systematic, and we try to take a very gradual progression to this. So to say, come in for one lesson, we'll get you figured out, is probably never going to happen, not in SwimBox at least, because we want to make sure we give as much information, as much detail as possible. So we do ankle mobs on swimmers to make sure that their ankles are flexible enough. And if they're not, see if we can make them more flexible in a very short period of time. We give them exercises out of the water to start gaining some hip flexibility. A lot of the runners have tight hip flexors, so their pelvises are automatically tilted in the wrong direction. So stretching flexibility stuff and good glute strength. You would think runners would have good glute strength, but if their hip flexors are too tight, it's hard for them to access their glutes as well. So making sure that is a priority first. And it can be very frustrating for people that are automatically, athletic. If you were born athletic and you took that athleticism and went in the direction of running, and then you get in the water and things have changed for you, it's a different world, so to speak. It can be very frustrating. So I actually recommend a lot of the time my first time clients, when they go to practice on their own, and they are required to practice on their own, that they just limit their practice to like 20 to 30 minutes, going over the things that we went on, not trying to add anything on their own, and taking lots of rest, not allowing themselves to get frustrated, but understanding that it's a new motor skill to learn, and they have to be patient with it, which is hard. If you're good at something like running, you automatically think, well, why can't I just swim? Or if you're a running partner, you might be better than your running partner, but they get in the pool and they're a better swimmer than you. That's even more frustrating.
Yeah.
So those types of things.
Yeah. The tough thing about that is with triathletes is that they usually have some sort of distance in mind that they want to accomplish every time they get in the pool. So it's like, oh, I don't want to just do drills. I'll do drills for, a few minutes, and then I'll just continue on with my workout. And it's like, no, it doesn't really work like that. Right.
Right. And trying to get someone to truly commit to the process is not easy, because exactly as you just said, people are convinced they've got to get, their yardage in for the day, or they're not going to make it. So if that's the case, during your off season, that's when you want to be working on new skills.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you use the endless pool technology? So you talked about that a little bit with, with beginners and then also with more advanced swimmers.
It's been a year, just over a year and a half since I've had the endless pool now. And within the first 2 weeks of having the endless pool, I realized that on deck, I was seeing way less of people's problems than I thought I was seeing. So the endless pool allows me to see underwater in a way that I could not ever do on deck. Because now that swimmer is stationary in front of me. They're not moving away from me. So the video is very clear. It's very obvious when things are wrong. I'm never traveling along deck with them. So my attention is completely on them as opposed to trying to actually walk down a deck of a pool and not trip. So that alone, just being right there for somebody, makes a huge difference. Having the video in a 360-degree environment, or even more than that, because now I can see directly above them, directly behind them, directly in front of them, in the water, under the water, all over the place. It's so easy for me to show somebody what they're doing well or what they're not doing very well and have them understand it visually, which obviously is the easiest way for someone to learn a motor skill is visually. With that in mind, I can stop them whenever I want. So there's no period of you did it right for the first 12 and a half yards, but the last 12 and a half yards, you did it completely wrong.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Forcing that bad habit. So there's that. I can stop them. I often put my hands in the water with them so they can start aiming for my hands for like working on their catch and their pull and their finish. Or I had one guy working on his breaststroke who didn't have very good natural timing. So every time I wanted him to take a stroke, I tapped him on his back. That wouldn't happen in a regular pool. Yeah. So things like that, those make huge differences. And then we have mirrors on the bottom. And with the mirrors on the bottom of the pool, the feedback is constant. People can constantly see what they're doing and try to make changes, try to maintain, or at least notice when something's gone wrong. So it's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I remember when I've only done the endless pool one time, and that was amazing to me to have that mirror right below me. And I could see every little thing that I'm doing wrong and be able to correct it. And I'm sure that takes a little bit of time if you're totally a beginner, but as you move forward, that's a great thing. And as you're talking, I'm thinking like all the things that I'm missing when I'm out there coaching somebody. With just like you said, like the 12, they do a half lap perfectly, and then they start doing it incorrectly, and then it's like I'm telling them this, and it's really hard to explain that. But when you have that just real time feedback, that's just awesome. So I really really love that, and I'm envious of your being able to use that pool. So
I feel really lucky as a coach. It's really sort of helped my learning of how to teach someone better.
Yeah,
as well. But the other thing that actually is quite helpful that people might not even realize, the pool itself works off of drag. So if you cause a lot of drag, you get pushed back. And so we can actually have like a real-time feedback. And if we can correct someone's body posture in 30 minutes or so, they can have that same pace that they started at and see that, well, they're putting forth the same effort, but traveling a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And especially it works very well with when people breathe. So if someone's taking a poor breath, they automatically start to get pushed back. And when you correct that breath, they start recognizing that they're not getting pushed back anymore.
Yeah.
It's a great tool. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about Wim Hof breathing. Now, the way I connected with you was through, you mentioned Andy, and that's Andy Harper, who I had on the podcast, I think like 3 podcasts ago. And we talked about his experience with Wim Hof breathing, and he mentioned you and SwimBox, and I was like, oh, I got to talk to this guy. So I really am curious about this. We're just starting to implement it. I just started doing it myself about 6 to 8 weeks ago, and I love it. I think it's awesome for what I'm doing, and then for my swimmers, I think it's just incredible. And hearing Andy's story and everything. So yeah, I'm curious how you're using the Wim Hof breathing. Well, let's talk about what it is first, and then how it can help like an open water swimmer or triathlete.
So I really believe that in order to be a good coach of any sport, you have to be connecting and talking to other coaches from other sports, other backgrounds for anything. I mean, I'm very fortunate here in the SwimBox. We're connected to physical therapists and to sports medicine doctors. So I have that sort of sharing of information all the time. And just being a swim coach doesn't mean you should only know things about swimming. You should know things about, well, how does the body actually work, and what's the best way to have the body work? So a lot of my clients, like Andy, come in with the issue of, I don't feel like I ever get enough air when I swim, or they have to stop every 25 yards to catch their breath. Now that can be an efficiency problem, right? They can just be spinning wheels and not moving anywhere and just burning a lot of oxygen. It could be a mental problem where they are just holding their breath. They think they might be exhaling, or it could be an actual, medical problem like sports-induced asthma. So you get across, you've got to figure all these things out. And for me, that's kind of the fun part of being a coach. You get to kind of put puzzles together. So I came across Wim Hof mostly because a lot of my open water swimmers who were great in the pool were coming back to me and telling me that they were having panic attacks in open water. And the same thing was always the case. It was always cold water, and they were never expecting that shock of the cold water, that moment of when you get cold water and you lose your breath. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I certainly have, and I am not a fan of cold water, so I know exactly what they were going through. That also with wetsuits. Wetsuits for a lot of people can be very scary because they feel like they're constricting their breath a little bit. So, doing research and trying to talk to people about things, I came across Wim Hof, who, also known as the Iceman. Sounded like a great idea to pay attention to this guy who can swim under lakes of ice, which is really hard to do. I think the 60 meters underwater and the lake was frozen. So obviously the water was under 32 degrees. So incredibly cold water, but this guy was able to do it. So with Andy specifically, it was more about teaching him. He had more oxygen in his bloodstream than he thought, because he was convinced he couldn't hold his breath more than like 6 seconds, which sounds silly to me, because I know that as an adult, you should be able to have no air in your lungs at all, and you have roughly around 30 seconds worth of oxygen in your bloodstream. So 6 seconds is nothing, right?
Right.
And it was an opportunity for I think Andy to learn about breath control and to actually gain breath control. Swimming within itself doesn't actually promote lung strength and lung capacity. I think a lot of people think it does. Swimming is a very shallow breath. You're only letting out the amount of air that you can bring back in. So if you are trying to increase your lung capacity, you have to deflate your lungs completely and inflate your lungs completely. And that doesn't happen in any real sport. If it does, I don't know of a sport that does that.
Right.
So with that, it's more about doing sort of like reps out of the water to build up that lung capacity. So a lot of people use Wim Hof as like a morning sort of meditation, build up the lung strength. You oxygenize your bloodstream. You feel great afterward. At least I do. I feel great after I do it. And so with Andy, I wanted him, we would do it before our lessons as an opportunity almost to like calm his mind down a little bit, show him that he could hold his breath. I think we got to 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. So from 6 seconds to 2.5 minutes, that's huge. And once he kind of got that through his head, it was much easier for him to put his face in the water and trust that he can exhale and that he was going to get the air back into his lungs that he needed. And if he didn't, he still had plenty of oxygen in his bloodstream until the next stroke came around. That's, for me, one of the great things about swimming is it's cyclical. So if you missed your breath, well, it's coming around again.
Yeah.
Try to take it that time. I'm curious, like, what do you find helpful about Wim Hof for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same experience that you do. So I've been doing it. I didn't start out doing it every day, but I like for the last month or so, I've been doing it every day, and I'm finding that experience of not having air in my lungs and building that up. I think I'm up to like 2 minutes and 15 seconds now is the most I've done. But then and then also inhaling and holding it in for a while. It actually, as I go about my day, I feel more relaxed. I feel more energetic, and I feel like I'm breathing properly without even knowing, like automatically breathing properly, not thinking about it. But then I just kind of realized, wow, I'm doing these deep breaths and I'm getting more air in my, circulating throughout, oxygen circulating throughout my body. So that's been an eye-opening experience for me. I haven't done I haven't done much of the cold water stuff. I mean, I've tried it a little bit with my little pool out in my apartment, but otherwise, I haven't gone out in the ocean here. It's 50, 6 degrees Fahrenheit. And
yeah, it's for me.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to doing that at some point. But what I was gonna ask you is, when do you teach this? Like, at what point would you? Because we both know that breathing is the hardest thing in freestyle. Like, you can have the perfect stroke, and then you go to take a breath, and everything falls apart. So yeah, what point in somebody like that's sort of beginner level, or that didn't come from a swimming background, do you teach the Wim Hof method to them?
Well, I've had athletes that have a swimming background but have an awful breath. I know, looking back at the 90s, a lot of the guys that were great swimmers in the 90s but were sprinters because they didn't know how to breathe properly. So there's a lot of people that are great swimmers that just don't know how to breathe properly. So I've used it in with experienced swimmers as well, and had really good results. So I look for somebody that always is complaining that they feel out of air after 25 yards or 50 yards, something very, very minimal where that shouldn't be an issue. So anytime someone is complaining about just they feel like their lungs are not getting enough air, or they just feel so tired after very short distances, that's when we start doing that. Or sprinters in general, because obviously when someone's sprinting and swimming, they're not supposed to be taking breaths. So having them work on their lung capacity and their breath control just helps them process oxygen a little bit better, so that they don't need to breathe during a 50 or 100 sprint. But I think most people don't know how to breathe properly in general in life, not in swimming.
Yeah.
You're sitting at a desk all day long. You're not thinking about your breath. You're taking very shallow breaths, and you're not aware of your full potential. So Wim Hof method brings that awareness to you. That's what I really like about it. It really helps bring awareness, and it helps people understand how to use their lungs properly. And you could kind of mention, taking small breaths. And I talked about when we swim, we take a very small breath. Actually, we're not using a lot of our lungs. That can actually induce panic. So if you take short, shallow breaths, your brain could piece that together with anxiety. And it goes, oh, I'm supposed to be panicked right now. I'm going to have a panic attack in the middle of the ocean right now, so I'm not going to swim. Wim Hof method helps sort of combat that and helps people relax. I think it's great to do before a race as well.
Yeah.
If you're going to get ready for a triathlon, a lot of races don't let people warm up in the water, so you don't know that water temperature. Some races do, some races don't. So if you have to kind of just take some time, separate yourself from the pack for a minute, take your breaths, do your normal rep that you would do for Wim Hof, and then you start swimming, I would feel more confident that that person is going to swim at ease versus what happens to most athletes when they get into their race, where their heart rate spikes, their breathing pattern is very accelerated, and a lot of panic sets in.
Yeah, and it reminds me of something that probably we could. This is a whole different topic, but the people, in the last few years, we've seen people have heart attacks in the swimming part of the triathlon, and this seems like, I mean, obviously we don't have science behind this, but this seems like something that people could do that would at least cut down their chances of anything like that happening? Because that really does seem to be, even though I don't know if we know for sure about these people that have had heart attacks, we don't know for sure what the cause is. It could be something genetic mixed with the environment, but it is likely that this panic is part of it, right?
Yeah. So I actually have a client who had a heart attack in an open water swim and actually had a Garmin heart rate monitor on the entire time. He survived. He lived. He's my client now. I did not know him when he had the heart attack. So he serves apparently as a huge source of research for this stuff, because they don't have that type of data to see what his heart rate was like when he had the heart attack. And so it seems like a couple of different factors that they're suggesting might be the problem. Panic, so that's going to elevate your heart rate. Cold, so the cold water is also going to accelerate your heart rate. And then, according to him, his doctors told him going from horizontal to vertical very quickly. So he stopped, and that made his heart have that heart attack. So it was really interesting to hear his perspective on it.
Wow.
And I've actually had a former client of mine have a heart attack and die in an open water swim, and he was a prolific swimmer. I mean, he swam his entire life, was very dedicated to swimming, and it was just out of nowhere and very unexpected. So yeah, I wonder if part of it is also competitiveness, pushing yourself to a heart rate zone that you haven't been really training at, and it's so sudden your heart can't handle it. So I would imagine that just doing some sort of meditation, even if it's not Wim Hof, before you get into the water would help just decrease anxiety in general. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I would love to learn more about this, because it's, like I said, part of my mission in what I decided to do with being a swim coach was to make sure everyone that wants to swim can swim, as long as they live. And there's no reason for 50-year-olds to be having heart attacks while they're in open water swims. It's just, there's got to be a way to prevent it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think this Wim Hof, this is just revolutionary stuff for swimming, and we're just seeing the very start of it now. And I think it's awesome that you're teaching it. So now I wanted to get a little bit into, maybe we can geek out a little on technique and talk about the high elbow catch. And it's something I think about every other podcast I do. There's some that comes up in some way or another. The pull, how do you do the pull? And so I want to get your take on that and how you teach it and where you start.
So I start with showing some images of Katie Ledecky, actually. So if you look at images or video of Katie Ledecky in 2012 Olympics, her catch was what I would think most coaches would consider a high elbow catch. And if you look at her in the 2016 Olympics, it's still, in my opinion, it's still considered high elbow, but not in the same way. So if you look at her catch now, it looks more like a greater than, less than sign, where the elbow is kind of pointed out to the side versus up towards the surface. Can you visualize that? Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you can visualize that, a lot of the times, I think even now, coaches still refer to it as a high elbow catch, and fingertips should be pointing straight down to the bottom, right? You hear that pretty frequently.
Right.
Well, that is going to put your hand in, so your fingertips to your forearm, that's going to put that outside of the line of your shoulder. When you slide your arm outside of the line of your shoulder, you're actually putting more pressure on the shoulder joint itself, and that ligament that runs across the bicep tendon that connects to the shoulder that I was mentioning that I stretched out, usually is getting pressure on it. So when I was doing my second year at the High Performance Camp, we were doing power testing for people's sort of first quarter of their pull. And the way that we did it was really basic. We just had a normal gym bench and 2 paddles attached to a scale. And we can measure how much these guys could pull. And it was like a bungee, a really, really strong bungee that they had to pull against. With the first round of testing, we noticed that everyone doing it tried to slide their hands outside of their shoulders to get a high elbow catch. And the results were very, very bizarre. They were very, very low pressure ability. And it didn't make any sense. We couldn't figure it out. In the second group, we asked people to try to keep their arms within line, or their thumbs in line with their shoulders as they pulled. And we had, I think, a 40-year-old woman pulling more pounds per pressure than a 30-year-old male that was in the water, much faster than her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was simply because of our anatomy. If you have your hand outside of your shoulder line, you can't actually engage as much strength. You're putting your shoulder in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah.
So you put your hand in line with your shoulder, you can actually access the full potential of your strength, because now that shoulder is getting compacted into the joint. You can access your shoulder blade, so your mid trap, your rhomboids, and your lat, and your supraspinatus, which helps keep the elbow up, in a much more effective way, in a much safer way. So it's kind of awesome that safe swimming also equals more powerful swimming.
Yeah.
So we start actually on a rack machine. So, like a regular gym rack machine.
Yeah.
We have people standing up vertically with the handle all the way up to the top, and they have to work on their catch, making sure they have a good catch, making sure it's in a good place. And then we have them start to lower their hand down so it becomes parallel with their elbow. And then from there, try to teach them how to actually compress their shoulder and get their shoulder blade moving back toward their back pocket, so they can actually feel their back do the work. And it's only about 10 pounds that we use, which is probably about what the average person is really pushing against in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, once they kind of demonstrate that movement on both arms, then we put a balance board underneath them and do the same motion with the balance board with added rotation. So now they get to feel how that catch and compression works with the rotation. So we try to get everything sort of synchronized and taught on land, so that it's very visible, it's very easy to see, it's very easy for them to feel that. So once they go to the water, now they're in front of our mirror on the bottom of the pool, they can mimic those movements. Once someone tries to get the same level of effort that they do when they normally swim, they lose that motor skill.
Mm-hmm.
So in the water, the goal is just to try to go through the motion, not generate any real power, and just ease themselves into those movements over and over and over again. And then maybe a couple weeks, it could be like roughly 6 practices, they start to add a little bit more effort. And then they could add a little bit more effort. And then it turns into their actual habit. So it's a very gradual process. It's a very technical process. There's lots of moving parts. It's very easy to overuse your shoulder joint during it. So it's one of those crucial movements to help prevent injury. But it's also a crucial movement to help you swim faster too.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's awesome. I loved your description there and how you go about it, because that's important stuff. And most people just say, okay, just do it this way. But you're taking kind of a methodical approach and breaking it down, and it takes a little patience, but that's a great way to really get this. Yeah.
And there's probably a ton of images of us working on this stuff on our Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone wants to see it,
that's perfect. What's your Instagram?
The handle is swim_box.
Okay, cool. I'll have to follow that one.
Yeah.
So what about, let's get into workouts. As far as distance swimmers and triathletes, that's always a big question that people have, and things have changed over the years and the decades in terms of what they need, like depending on, let's say you're doing an Olympic distance or a half Ironman or something, like what they need to be focused on. How would you advise somebody like that in terms of workouts?
Well, I think it's really important to have a pretty clear workout or seasonal plan first, right? So in the macro level, knowing the different phases that you're going to be doing, right? So for a great example, most of the athletes here in the Northern Virginia, DC area are going to start doing smaller races in May. And, a lot of their Ironmans are early fall or November even. So if you keep that in mind, that means September, October, November, the previous year, those are their off seasons. That's when you want to be spending more time on technique working on slower things, good corrections, so that you don't have to take away too much of your time to come, spring to just do technique, right? So it's a gradual process. I think science is definitely showing us that you can swim less, meaning less frequently, and have really great results. You might need to spend a little bit more time in the water though. So if you're swimming, only 2 hours a week, you're going to plateau fairly quickly, depending on where you're starting from, right? So if you're very novice swimming 2 hours a week, you'll probably see great gains, but not for very long. Maybe your first year, maybe even less than that. So I would say that giving yourself more rest during technique periods during that workout. So for example, a lot of my workouts are you warm up, and the first 15 to 20 minutes after that warm up is just drill work. So doing drill work with a very, very intense focus and purpose with lots of rest is going to make you stay in the water longer, even though you might be swimming the same total yardage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Right. It's very hard in Northern Virginia to get pool time, so we have to limit our workouts to an hour. So typically for the athletes that I work with on deck, we're only in the pool twice a week together. So it's Tuesdays we like to do a lot of drill work with more aerobic work. Thursdays we do what I would call aerobic threshold, maybe VO2 max is a good description for it, but it's definitely not anaerobic. But we still try to get some drill work in before we get really pushing hard. And that, I think that's also another thing to consider for triathletes, that you have to have varied speeds. You can't just go to a pool and swim 1,500 yards straight every single swim practice at the same level of effort. If you don't have a strong swimming background, you will see great improvement for a short period of time. But at some point, it's going to stop improving. You're going to plateau, and you're going to be scratching your head. Well, why can't I get faster? I spend all this time in the pool. So doing speed work is just like running. You have to do speed work in order to get we use zone training. In order to get your zone 2 to get faster, well, you also have to get your zone 4 faster as well.
Right.
I mean, how do you try to structure the workout plans for people? I mean, what is your take on it? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a good question, because we sell part of our package, our TriSwim Success package includes several workout plans. They're all 12 weeks, and these are kind of assuming that you're at a certain level. I mean, it can be beginner level, but that you've done a little bit of work on drills. And so what we recommend is to go through our drill progress, get really good at that, and then start on day one, week one, day one on each of the whichever race you're going to be doing. So like we have, sprint, Olympic, half, and Ironman, and the workouts I try to make them fun and interesting, and also, just a lot of quality, and not as much, even though people love to see, how many yards is that? So we do indicate the yards and everything, but it's more important that they're quality workouts. And I do that, like what you said, is a lot of drill, no matter what part of the season. I'm still doing drills first, and then we get into the main set and the harder stuff. And I like to do mix things in, like not a ton of anaerobic, but like maybe once a week or so, where they're doing like just a purely a sprint workout. And that you could be doing, you could be doing like 1,000 yards, but it's just, there's a whole lot of just short sprints with there's a lot of short sprints mixed in with some longer stuff. And so, yeah, it's a good question, because I grew up in the 80s, and it was all about massive yardage, and just, we had these workouts that were like 4 hours on the weekends, and it was awful. And that's why I got shoulder issues eventually, because of all that. And it wasn't that it was necessarily, it was partly that you think, well, it's just overkill. It's beyond the fact that it's overkill. It's actually counterproductive when you're doing that much, especially when, that time I was training for like hundreds and 200-meter sprints. Yeah. So,
yeah. And I think that's why we're seeing now smarter training happen. And there's a higher bar in swimming now, right? It's not like one or two people are getting faster. Everyone's getting faster because everyone is training a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that model that was used in the 80s and the 90s of just tons and tons of yardage, basically you had to be somewhat of an outlier to make it through all that and not get injured.
Yeah.
Or have success. And those were the people that went to the Olympics. But well, now we're seeing people that, are practicing USRPT training. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
So USRPT is ultra sprint training protocol, something to that effect.
Yeah.
It's actually, it can be kind of controversial for a lot of swim coaches in general, but the principles I think are very sound. And it has been shown in some scientific research that doing repetitive distances over, depending on what you're training for, is more beneficial than just doing sort of pointless yardage or what, you would call junk yardage. So with that training or that protocol, it's about getting plenty of rest, making sure that whenever you swim, you're set, right? So you kind of figure out what your sort of specific set is going to be. So a good example would be maybe 850s. Each 50 has to be under 25. And if you don't make it to 8, so if number 6, you go above 25, well, on number 7, you have a chance to go back down under 25. And if you don't, you just stop, right? Yeah. You're honest with yourself and say, oh, I didn't make it, I should stop. So you warm down a little bit and then you go back to doing drill work. So it's a really smart protocol. And that's the hard part, I think, about being a swim coach, at least a master swim coach, where, you have to entertain people in the water. Yeah. So they don't want to do the same workout all the time. You have to do something creative or they get really bored. So what I try to do is I build in sort of fun, I'm going to say sort of fun test sets for people where it's, every 6 to 10 weeks, we'll do the same test set.
Yeah.
And all my swimmers know they're coming. And when they happen, they know they're supposed to record the results of that test set. And I use 2 or 3 different test sets just to kind of keep it fun and entertaining. Some people like other test sets other than, some other test sets that they do and vice versa. So it's really important that people don't just go to a pool and go, well, I'm going to swim my zone 2, 1500 now. Get out. I'm done with my swim.
Yeah.
Time to do something more fun. Let me jump on the bike.
Yeah.
They have to have a point to it. So it's incredibly important to have a good seasonal plan in place. I just did an interview with Triathlon Magazine, and that interview was supposed to speak to people that want to swim without a swim coach, sort of DIY swimmers. And it's really hard if you don't have good guidance.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion to everyone out there. In some way, get some guidance. Don't just try to do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. Well, all right. Well, this has been really exciting stuff and really interesting. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about, you have a camp coming up.
Yes.
In Lake Como, which sounds like a absolute horrible place, but you can talk about that.
I mean, the pictures look dreadful. It's this beautiful blue lake surrounded by this beautiful village. I don't know, and all these mountains. It's going to be very hard to go there.
Yeah.
But it's my job, and I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to do it. But I'm really excited to go. So Italy, Lake Como, if you don't know, it's somewhat northern Italy. I've actually never been to Lake Como, so it's going to be my first time there, and I've spent a good amount of time in Rome, and I love that culture of Italy where it's just so fun there and so relaxed and so much good food. And as a swimmer, that's what I'm most concerned about is the food. But we're going to go in August. So we're going August 2nd to August 12th. And the goal is to have some training for open water swims, training for cycling, run training, and then at the end of all of it, participants get to do a Olympic distance try there. So it's turning out to be something that I think we'll probably do every single year, and something that everyone can participate in. So we're doing another open water clinic, only open water clinic in the Bahamas in February. The downside to that is, well, if your spouse doesn't swim, they might not want to come to the Bahamas for a swim clinic. Mm-hmm. So the upside to Lake Como is, well, maybe your spouse likes to run and they don't have to do the swim and the bike portion. They could just run and be part of the hiking group and part of the tour. They're going to take tours to the cycling museum there in Lake Como. So lots of things planned. And we have all the information for it on our website. So if anyone is interested, they can just go to theswimbox.com and check it out. And we're happy to answer any questions over email about it. But we have 5 swims planned, 5 bike rides planned, 3 runs planned, some lectures, so in classroom lectures as well that are planned, and all the meals are taken care of. And I've been coaching for so long now that one of my kids that I used to coach, who was 16 when I used to coach her, is running all the other the run and the bike stuff. And it was just, fortunate that she reached out to me, and I hope that we can get people from all over the country to come and make new connections and work together and have fun in Italy.
Yeah, it sounds pretty awesome. Yeah, the one good thing about Como would be that it's going to be warm that time of year, and you don't have to think about sharks. Like that's awesome.
No sharks. Yes, Bahamas. There are sharks.
Yeah.
But there's no sharks. According to my resources there, the lake is still going to be cold enough that it'll be wetsuit legal, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's always appealing for most triathletes as well, to have the wetsuits. I think the lake will probably be around 72 to 75 degrees.
Oh,
Fahrenheit.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a pretty deep lake, so it stays pretty cold.
Yeah. It's nice, though. Just do a little Wim Hof breathing if you can't handle that, and you're good to go.
We'll do a Wim Hof session if you show up.
Awesome.
We'll pull everyone aside and do some Wim Hof breathing. And I think if speaking of the Wim Hof stuff, I think it's worth noting that if anyone is interested in learning more about it, they can obviously go on YouTube and see people do it. But Wim Hof also, I think if you go to the Wim Hof website, he offers like a free brief tutorial. Yeah. And he also offers, I think, a package of videos that teach you how to do it as well. And if you don't know about Wim Hof, you should read about him.
Yeah.
Someone's listening.
Totally. We'll link to the documentary, the Vice documentary, The Iceman. And it's 39 minutes or something. And it's really good and interesting and motivating. So
yeah. Whenever I talk to my clients about this guy named Wim Hof, they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, okay, whatever. It's all just a hoax. It's the internet. I don't believe any of that stuff. But it's been trial tested and scientifically proven.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Can't argue with it, really.
Yeah. So how can someone, if they want to book a lesson with you, how can they do that?
So everything is done online. You can go to our website, swimbox.com, and schedule right there online. If there's any questions or concerns, our phone number is there, and you can give us a call, and we can work things out and figure things out. Anyone that is not in the Northern Virginia area, we can set up sort of a workshop, like a weekend-long workshop, so you can travel to Northern Virginia. We're located by metros, so you can make a vacation of it and go to D.C. and check out all the sites in D.C. We have tons of hotels nearby us as well, so it's really easy to stay here. But we can set up sort of a very specialized weekend-long curriculum for that individual to focus on everything that person needs and wants to accomplish and achieve. And if they're interested in that, they can just email us and we will get that organized and make sure everything is taken care of for them.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, I highly recommend it if you get a chance. If you need to fly, it's worth it. I can guarantee it's worth it to go check out the SwimBox and Dominic and what they're doing there, because this is like the cutting edge. This is like I think this is the most cutting edge as far as coaching that I've heard yet. So I'm excited about it. So
yeah. I keep trying to keep pushing to be the forefront of what anyone can learn in swimming and outside of swimming. Wim Hof is a great example. In May, I'll be getting a certification for postural respiratory breathing as well. It's a certification that's supposed to help people learn how to breathe in a better way to help correct thoracic spine posture, which is a huge issue for a lot of people that sit at a desk all day long and then want to get into some sort of athletic endeavor that, like swimming, uses a lot of back muscles.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be very, very helpful as well. I mean, I'm always open to new concepts and new ideas. And I think that's why us having a relationship is really helpful and great, because we'll be able to share ideas so freely and easily.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I look forward to that in the future. So yeah, thanks, Dominic, again for coming on the show. That was really awesome. And I'm excited for what you're doing, and good luck with everything in the future.
Thanks so much. And like I said, if anyone is even in the area and just wants to get filmed, we film people for free so they can come and get filmed. And hopefully we can help support what you do as well, making sure that people get good workout plans with good videos of drills, and making sure that, everyone that wants to swim can swim and can swim indefinitely for the rest of their lives. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to tryswimlessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim